redo bond validation if that's the direction you guys decide. But I think that it might be helpful to just kind of gauge the board. Is there a groundswell of support to terminate the transaction? And then if there is not, then let's focus on what the third option is and how we move forward there. But I
I
think
don't
that
think anybody was taking termination off the table. Yes, we should discuss it. But we are missing still a couple of board members. And I think it'd be unfair to take anything off the table, except the appeal, because you're telling me there's a time frame problem with the appeal. And we already addressed that one. So that leaves termination and reworking the assessment methodology. And the leader's point is well taken. We can do a survey, find out whether the community even wants to go ahead with this deal, and that's fine. I don't know how long that'll take. I don't even know how to start that at this point in time. I agree, something we should do.
I think the appropriate way to do it, to be sure all residents who own here in Solivita and are part of the CDD have a chance to vote, we should do this one by mail.
Well, let me ask you a question.
It should be one home, one vote.
Yes, I agree.
One home, one vote. We want to make sure everybody knows that.
We're jumping the gun, folks, hold on. We haven't made a decision as to what we're gonna do. I wanna say one other thing. I think one of the things that Dick said that I will 100% agree with is this has become a personal issue. People have been attacked personally, both sides, and it's no longer a factual decision, it is now an emotional decision, and that's never going to go away. We can terminate this thing now, and the people who hate us will still hate us. The people who think we're the most ignorant people in the world will still believe that, and I think we should proceed with doing it, because termination will prove two things. One, that we were wrong all along, and two, that they were right all along, and I'm not willing to do that right now.
The issue of one household, one vote, that's fine, but think about this for a minute. We have year-round residents, we have partial year residents. Do the partial year residents really have the same interest as the year-round residents in all the amenities? And
Yes. They're owners, they have to pay the same fees.
I'm curious.
Everybody should pay the same fees.
I'm glad you can speak for all of them, that's fine. I can't, okay? And I would never speak for anybody else, but I just question that. But I think we should do the survey.
Okay.
Before you go further, I just want to say also that I think termination should be taken off the table. We all want the amenities. We all want to own the amenities. We want to control those amenities. We want to do it the right way. So I think termination is not an option. I think it is to go forward, but to go forward possibly in another direction.
I don't see any reason not to make a different decision today on termination or not termination. We have a quorum here. Every other vote we've taken has been taken based on that quorum. I don't see any reason why we have to wait just because a few members have not been able to meet.
Okay, so what would you like to do?
Can we put a motion forward on whether or not to take termination off the table?
Well, I think that it would probably be more appropriate that if somebody wanted to make a motion to terminate the contract based on the failure of bond validation, that would be the appropriate motion, because otherwise you're just kind of reinforcing what's already there, is that we already have a contract. And I will just, advise the board, understand that if you go with option 3 and you don't make a decision one way or another on termination, you're still in your inspection period. I mean, you're still going to have to amend the agreement to take out the assessment equalization concept period. So certainly the board can take whatever motions and votes they want to today. I'm not really sure where that gets us, though, just kind of looking around the room based on the discussion I'm hearing. So, but if the board wants to, take a vote on that, they certainly can. I'm not sure that it'll change our course.
The termination is still in the picture as long as Well, who's the contracts out there? I mean, you're saying terminate.
So we got closing, it's still there.
We have to, if you're not going to, change it through the appeals process, we're gonna have to amend the purchase and sale agreement. There's no question about that. And we have to amend our assessment methodology. So there's a process we have to go through in negotiating to be able to do that.
Should we table the discussion?
Well, I think if we want to think about doing some kind of a survey to residents, maybe we can ask our district manager, does the district manager have the information necessary to do a mailing to our residents with a survey question?
What are we going to ask them?
Well, I suggested that we ask whether we want to go forward with the agreement at the current contract price,
No.
whether we want to go forward with the agreement.
No, that sets up the whole thing.
Okay, so then a simple question. Should we continue to negotiate for the possibility of buying the amenities or not? Yes or no?
I think that was your original question.
Well, but haven't we heard from the people who are actually opposing it, saying they want a transaction to go through? They just don't like the price? I mean, how is, or if in fact,
I just heard the question raised here.
if in fact the intent is to kill the transaction, then that's fine, stand up and say that. But don't sit here and say, we want a transaction, we just don't like the terms, and then send out a survey saying, does everybody want to move forward? Because even the people who are against us are saying, we want a transaction, we just don't like the terms.
That's a very neat point, because everybody does want to transact. I think it's just a question of the terms.
You don't know.
We have no way of knowing that. It has never been a survey of the residents. Let us find that out. Let us find out what the percentage of support for purchasing the amenities is in this community.
So what's the question?
And then we will have the strength to say, we have a vote of 70% of the people, let's say, that want to go forward with these amenities, and then we can go forward knowing that we have the support of the residents to go forward.
So the question is, do you as a resident want to purchase the amenities at all and build new ones?
Explain to them the decision that was made by the court, because some people may not have known what it
Well,
is.
now you're really getting into.
Well, I think you're gonna have to send something to a letter and explain to people why we're doing the survey, all of a sudden in the middle of the deal.
Try to.
Right, why we're doing it in the middle of the deal.
Not
I mean, that's, we're way beyond the survey stage of this thing. I mean, I think we ought to address the issue, one, or do we want to terminate? Two, do we want to change the equalization? Those are the two questions, and that's what we should be voting on.
Do we want to amend the contract?
No, that's
Look
not
at
our
the contract
decision.
terms.
Our decision is, do we want to appeal, do we want to terminate, or do we want to change the equalization? That's the question we should be answering. We don't need to be getting involved in these other things that we should have been talking about for the year and a half, which we did. I mean, every time we did a survey, we were told they were invalid, and
That's right, that's why we need to do a
Right.
professional.
And then
survey
they'll-
that had not been done.
And when we do this professional survey, then that'll be not valid because it's not the way some people wanted it to turn out. I think we're just rolling our wheels down the road, going off the cliff. We've made a decision to pursue this. Now we're at a point where we have a bond validation decision and we have to decide, number one, are we going to appeal? Number two, are we going to terminate our contract? Or number three, are we going to go back and change our equalization method? We are beyond all of this other stuff that we're talking about. People are angry. They're going to be angry whether we terminate or not. They're not going to all of a sudden say, oh, I'm your friend now because you now did what I agree with. We need to stay the course for the benefit of the residents. And we felt that way all along. I think we should continue on the same track. It's my opinion.
No matter which way we go, don't we have to start working the simple flight steps? As long as we agree that we're not terminating at this point in time, even if there is a survey looming, we have to come up with some things, to get some numbers that we're going to look at. The equalization payments, is it just going to be equalizing the 65 to the 85? Are we going to use the unwrapped? Are we going to use the undeveloped versus developed? Is this all going to get integrated into one simple payment for everybody?
Yes,
Okay.
that is what I would recommend in terms of your.
So that's the numbers, and some people have said we will be breaking the promise of keeping it the same for everybody. And I'm just remember that we are, I don't know semantics if that is the promise, but that was one of the criteria we were working around. But if for some reason some people wind up paying more, keep in mind that had the bond validation gone through, you would have been paying less. That's my statement.
Yeah, I mean, the result of the bond validation case is not that people were paying too much. It's that some people were getting their assessments paid down. And so what I would recommend, if you decide to go down the third route, which is to take out the assessment equalization payment concept from both your methodology and the sales contract, you would have an across-the-board assessment for everybody that's equal. And the board would not be in the business of adjusting the assessments for individual lots. However, any person can pay down their CDD assessments. I can go over to Lita's house and pay down her assessment. And unless she objects and tells the district manager, no, don't let him pay down my assessment, your assessment will then be lower. So, whether or not there are private arrangements after the board does what it wants to do in terms of paying down people's assessments, that's a private issue if the board gets out of that business. We tried to do this in the most efficient way possible. The judge had a concern with the way we did it, and so therefore, the fix I'm suggesting is that the board get out of that business, do a straight level assessment, and any payoffs that occur are arrangements between private parties. So that would be my suggestion if you go with the third option. And I remember, and I've told Dick this before, this was the issue I believe that Dick voted in favor of doing across the board assessment the whole time. And so he was very smart in terms of anticipating, what could happen here. But that's option number 3 if you want to go down that road. And so when you ask me about the wrap and the undeveloped versus the developed and everything, my suggestion will be a very simple methodology that will look a lot like what you have for your pond banks.
Yeah, in business, the term KISS is you often use, keep it simple. And that's exactly what we want to do. That was what I suggested to Michael on the phone the other day, I know that people pay $65 over in Rainbow Lakes. All right, so maybe it goes to $75, so you pay another $120 a year. But guess what? All the other people are paying $85, and if it comes down to $75 or whatever the number is, that equalizes and everybody gets the same benefit. So I think that's the fair methodology to use.
Maybe somebody will come forward, a private individual, and say, okay, I'll pay that $120 a year for you. No, I wouldn't laugh at that. That's a possibility.
Are we open to go?
No.
Look, we've thrown around a lot of things here, and I don't know whether we've thrown stuff off the table or not, but can we at least get back to one thing that Lita brought up, and I don't want to ignore it, because God knows we'll hear about it, and that's about the survey. Do we want to do a survey? That's the question I want to know.
I don't think so.
I really don't give a darn, I'd like to see what the results are.
I think it's very important for us.
But how are we going to word it? That's the critical thing. I'm not going to get into the judge's interpretation of his ruling in a letter. That's a no-no.
The survey could be as simple as a question: are you in favor of the Solivita residents purchasing the amenities from AV Homes? Yes or no? End of survey.
Fine.
See what I mean?
There are people here in the audience who have been survey specialists over the years. Maybe we can ask some of the residents here who have done surveys some suggestions on what would be the best way to do this.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I just want to remind the board, you are the representatives of the
Yes.
people here, you're elected representatives, and the decision is yours. Take into account whatever survey results, sentiment, people who stop you on the street, that's fine, but you are the decision makers. So I would be very careful saying that we're gonna do whatever the majority of the survey is, when most surveys that I see have about a 20% response rate. And so, you really need to be careful going down that road and giving up what your authority is as the representative.
That's true. You're gonna base your decision on 20% return or something like that? That's not good
That's
either.
true, that's true of most elections, that's true of most decision-making in a representative governmental body. But to this day, there has never been a professional survey of residents to find out what they want. We may be representing their position, but we don't even know exactly what that position is.
I just like to say that I think we've had lots of opportunities where people who have concerns have been given an opportunity to share those concerns. And I do feel like we understand that there are people that would like us to have considered different things, and there are people that are out there who are happy with the plan that we have going forward. So I think we have surveyed by giving people an opportunity to speak at these meetings.
The number of people from Solivita who've come to these meetings probably numbers 1 or 2% at most at any of these meetings. The number of people that have had a chance to have a voice on this is extremely small. It's our little group of friends that we each know. I think it is very, very important going forward that we have a sense of what at least a number, and hopefully if the survey is done properly, we'll have a better response than 10 or 20%.
So Mike's opinion about us abdicating our responsibility no matter what. So even if we have a survey, let's have a survey or whatever, but it's still our decision one way or the other. We can work that issue. Let's work around the simplification process. We can do those things in tandem. We don't have to wait for a survey before we do the simplification process. So let's get this process rolling, get the numbers, see what it comes out to, see if there is an angel out there who might come to the rescue of somebody's payments. So let's look down those lines. We don't have to wait for a survey. There's been enough delays. People have thrown so much mud on the wall since we've started this, and only one thing stuck, and as Len said, we're harping over it. We're only looking at one thing. There's been roadblock after roadblock. It's been, they're giving out passes, they're letting people in, they're doing this, they're doing that. It's been all scare tactics. I think when we get forward, let's just go with the process like Len says. We've all been on board since more or less day one, most of us. Some other people have come on board too. So all the comments I get, and I guess maybe some people don't like to personally give negative compliments, but most of them complimentary. That thanks for your hard work, thanks for what you're doing, keep up the good work. That's my answer.
Is there a cost to the board for doing the assessments, for doing work of the assessments?
No.
Okay, so that's something that's information that we can collect.
I'm sorry.
Leave speak into the microphone.
I said, I asked if there was a cost to the board to do these assessments. Mike just answered no.
There's a funding agreement
Funding.
in place that covers the financing related activities. And so going through and doing a new methodology, I would suggest is part of that funding agreement. If you're talking about a survey, then that's a different question, but that's not what you said.
Right, I asked about it. So whether we do the assessments is not going to be a difference in cost to us. So there's no reason to hold back on at least finding out what that difference would be.
And as far as the survey goes, we need to look at the number of responses we get to determine whether it's a valid survey. If we only get 30% of responses from the community, I don't know how that's telling us any more than we know now.
Can we get back to the question at hand? Our agenda says to come up with the next steps related to the bond validation order. And the steps are appeal, terminate, or remove the equalization and simplify it. Can we please get back to the agenda and we can discuss this particular thing under new business or under supervisor things, but until we get the agenda item done, we're not doing our job here. I'm not disagreeing.
The idea of doing a survey is part of those next steps. It is part of this part of the agenda.
No, our decision is, do we want to appeal, terminate, or simplify? That's the question that's on the table, and we should be answering that question. And we can, I'm not disagreeing with doing or not doing a survey. All I'm saying is, let's make the decision, the legal decision that we were asked by Mike, which direction do we want to go with the bond validation decision? That's all we should be talking about right now. And then we can talk about the survey idea later. Maybe it is a good idea to get input, but that's not what's on the table.
I disagree. We have put off the survey long enough. I think it should be part of this decision. Now, I would vote yes if we say we should go forward with the assessments and also do the survey. I will vote no if we only agree to go forward with the assessments.
Well, that's not going to stop me from saying what I'm still saying. We still have to make a decision as to whether we're going to direct Mike to appeal the decision.
We've done that already.
All right, no appeal, all right.
No appeal.
Whether we want to terminate the contract or the transaction, or if we want to proceed with simplifying the equalization. The two are not independent or dependent on each other. We can do both of those things. Right now, we're dealing with a bond validation decision that we need to react to. Everything else is superficial to that question. And we need to answer that question. Then we can talk about the survey and all of that. I think there's some validity to that, but I'm not sure it's part of this discussion.
Well, then I agree with Supervisor Epstein. Let's do it in parallel. Supervisor Epstein, will you take the action item to find somebody to do a survey or create a proper survey question?
I want somebody
I don't
independent.
want a list of 100 questions.
I want somebody independent. I want to get 3 opinions and then we can decide.
And come back.
I have no problem searching out professional survey people. In fact, it's already been done by several people.
No, not to completion.
But not to completion, but I would certainly gladly go back to those people and have them decide what is the best way to professionally go forward with this question.
I believe that Mike Eckert should take the lead on the survey.
That's fine with me. I was asked if I would do it, and I said yes, but I have no problem with Mike doing it.
I think that,
You would normally get involved?
I think that the board should see it before it goes out.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think it's going to be very difficult for you all to agree on what the question or the questions are, because I heard the most general question that I could think of, and it was shouted down. And I thought that that was a very good question. So if you think you're all going to sit around here and say, oh yeah, because anytime you do a survey, if you don't put a number with it, it's not going to mean much. And anytime you do a survey, when there's pending class action litigation out there that has some bearing on it, that's going to affect your survey results too. So, I'm not saying don't do one. I'm saying it's going to be very difficult for this board to come up with what you want there. Here's what I'm trying to do to get us back on track today. Okay? And that is do the boards want to terminate the contract today? Because if there isn't the desire to terminate the contract today, we don't need to take any action, and you need to tell us, go back, start working on the methodology, start working on the amendments to the purchase contract. You still are going to have to make the decision on approving all those, but at least we have some direction so we can come back to you. The only thing on termination I need to know is if you guys are done today, then take that vote, and then we can all go back to focusing on pond banks, and then whatever happens to the amenities happens.
Matt, taking the termination off the table today, we're saying, no, we don't want to terminate today, does not mean we can't terminate in the future and discuss it in the future. Correct?
Correct, because if we don't come to an agreement on the contract
Right.
renegotiations, there's not going to be an agreement, because right now it has a provision that the court disagreed with in terms of what we put in our methodology.
So actually, it's not really terminating the contract. Really, what we're saying is, let's just go forward with what we're doing, and until we're happy with the contract, we won't go forward. And that would be the end of that discussion.
Well, I think that one board member has said very eloquently that the community maybe is struggling with this. in terms of, and it's not been productive on some fronts in terms of how it's been processed. And so, but I think that having the decision today, do you want to terminate today and stop working on this? That's really the question that I need to know from the boards, because if so, I'm going to pack up my file and I'm going to move on to something else. But if that's not the will of the board today, then tell us to work on the other stuff, and then we'll come back before you with what we can come up with.
So what should the motion be?
I don't think there necessarily needs to be a motion. I just want a general direction from the board to bring back to you at the next meeting. Do you want me to engage the assessment consultant to do a methodology where everybody pays the same? That's what I need to know. Should I be doing that? And then should I be working with Developers Council on amendments to the contract that would be necessary by the virtue of the fact that we no longer have the assessment equalization payment? Those are the two tasks that I would work on if you directed me to do so between now and when we have our next meeting.
And that's option 3.
That is option 3. And then the survey issue is something that's come up today. And again, I don't think it's involved in this. I think you can talk about that today if you want to do it. But it's not going to change if you tell me to work on those two
Correct.
things.
In parallel.
So do you
So-
need a vote of any kind, Mike?
No, I just need the direction from the board to go back and get the consultant working, and I'm already under contract to try to negotiate what changes we need, if in fact you don't want to terminate today.
I would agree with Mike's recommendation.
Yeah, I agree also. What should the board?
I agree, but I really would like us to have some options for a survey at the next meeting.
I agree with no caveats.
I agree with no caveats as well.
Same here.
I didn't understand the caveat.
Lisa said it had to be an exception. She agreed, but she put a but in there.
But what, and when you say but, it eliminates everything that was said before.
My caveat is that in addition to those two things, I would like to have options for a survey as part of the next agenda.
And can I clarify, are you asking for proposals from professional survey companies, or are you asking for specific survey questions? Because I heard mention a professional survey company to do this.
It's probably best for us to have it done by a professional survey company so that questions are developed in a professional way and most likely be more acceptable to the board.
And so my question is, what you're expecting at the next meeting are proposals from 3 companies who could do surveys. Is that what you're requesting, or are you requesting to see specific survey questions?
Companies that can do surveys and that can come with suggestions on what is the best way to approach getting the information regarding how residents feel about this process.
Right, the second part will require them to come up to speed on exactly what we've been discussing for a year and a half.
That's true. They need to know what the options are. And anybody who's a consultant can do that relatively quickly. But if we want to really know this answer, and I think it's important for us to know this answer if we're going to go forward, I don't see why we keep resisting getting a professional in here to find out the answer.
Because I don't think never mind. Whatever the survey comes back, is it going to change your mind?
If the survey would have come back and 90% of the people saying we should kill the deal, yes, it would change my mind.
What if I came back?
At this point, I don't expect that to happen, but I think we should.
But
get
what
a
if it is,
consensus.
Lisa?
Then the residents are that opposed to it, then I think we as representatives of those residents are gonna have to agree.
And where's the cutoff point for that, in your mind?
That is something we discuss after we get the details.
Okay.
So you have direction now to proceed with
I have clear direction that you want me to get a even assessment methodology, simplified assessment methodology prepared, brought to the board, and we can certainly do that, and then you can talk about it from there.
Okay.
We'll prepare the resolutions that are necessary to kick off the process, should the board so choose to do that, at the next meeting, and we'll talk about what that's going to be. Also, we'll work with trying to figure out what changes need to be made to the purchase contract and hopefully bring back a red line version of that to the board, if in fact AV is still interested in pursuing it as well. Then the third issue that I think I'm tasked with, but I haven't heard from all the board members, is, and I think it's probably more appropriate for Chuck, quite frankly, to go ahead and, sorry Chuck, but reach out to 3 survey companies and get 3 proposals for doing a community-wide survey on whatever questions this board's going to agree to, and that's going to be very, very difficult. I don't know how you're going to do it, but we'll bring those proposals to you, and I would just ask that Chuck do that because I don't think it's a good use of your resources for me to do.
On a separate issue, you mentioned always that we're still in the inspection phase.
That is correct.
Kathy, how is Hurricane Irma going to impact that? What type of,
Goes on item 9, Supervisor.
I'm shooting the gun, I can wait.
If we could, because I'd like to get a little clarification, please. I can bring back 3 proposals from 3 firms on doing a survey that will tell you how much it costs to do mailing, receive them back, and do the tally. As your council has made note, coming up with the questions is the issue, and how would you like that to be addressed? Are you going to select a firm and then negotiate out the questions?
That would be, I think that would be the appropriate way to do it, is to have a professional come in here, find out what the issues are that we want to question, and then develop a professional survey done by a professional who knows how to do it.
You know, it's all going to come down to price, you know. So I don't care what you put out there. It's all going to come down to people want to pay the least amount for the most that they can get.
But the other, if you put down this deal or no deal, would there be a different response? Because that's, quite frankly, I think it's been our opinion most of the time, that it's this deal or no deal. And Lita, if it was this deal or no deal, would you accept it?
No.
Oh, I thought you had some.
I
So-
would not accept it at this price because I do think it is a financial risk to this community.
So then we don't need a survey. We know where people are. We know, what we don't have is the monetary, not monetary, the numerical. We don't know how many people are under each of those categories. That's really what we want to get out
And
of
we
the
should get at
survey.
that.
Pardon?
We should get a sense of that. We have no idea.
Okay, all right, so then getting 3 companies to come and put proposal on providing a survey, we can go ahead and proceed that. And then we can decide after that what we want to do.
Once a firm is selected, that selected firm will have to go back and forth with the board on the question.
And they'll be the ones that are the professionals that tell us what's going to be what I'll call a neutral question, as opposed to one that may be leaning in one way or the other.
And just get, so the board can think about this at least 3 or 4 meetings.
Right. The only problem is that we have to come to agreement on whether the question is neutral or leaning in one way or the other, and I don't see that happening.
You're going to try.
But we can try.
We'll try.
There's no reason why we can't have multiple questions, and each board member can decide which one they want to believe.
It's just that it'll be the same as the survey that we did through Lifestyles.
No, it won't, because that was not a valid survey. It was not a valid survey because people figure out how to answer it in a multiple way. That is why I'm saying we need a professional.
If we could move on a little bit, I mean, I know that we've got a hard stop at 4 o'clock. I think that if you want Chuck to bring back, the proposals, you can bring back the proposals. I just don't want everybody here to be under the impression that you all are going to agree on what the questions are because of price, the factor of class action where there's people out there that believe that the amenities are going to be free forever. How does that affect your survey results? So this is not going to be an easy issue for you guys to come up with something that's meaningful. So just be prepared for that, and certainly you can bring the proposal.
Okay, has everybody got their direction?
Understand?
Okay. All right. We gonna move on to the next item?
Yeah, I think move on to the amending the general fund budget, and I'll defer to Chuck.
No.
Special meeting.
Oh, well, that's the question for the board, is do we want to try to meet in 2 or 3 weeks to get those proposals, as well as look at a methodology, start making some decisions, because certainly, as I said, the class action could be over in 3 months, it could be over in many years. And my goal, since that has been here, is to put the district in the position so you can proceed when you want to.
And I think expediency is the rule of the day.
So I think, look 3 weeks out, and let's pick a special meeting date, and I would ask Sherry if she could look at the calendar to
What's
find
our
out.
next meeting date for our regular meeting?
I would ask Chuck.
It's on the 18th of October.
Is that not soon enough?
That's up to the board how you want to do it. I think in 3 weeks I can get stuff together.
I'm unavailable until the next meeting, basically.
Okay.
Is Charlie gonna be back?
But the next meeting, he's back the 16th.
Okay.
October 16th?
So October 18th makes sense.
It's the board's decision. I'm just saying that I can expedite it somewhat if you want me to, but if you do not want to meet again until the next board meeting, or can't, then certainly you guys make a call on it.
I think we should do it to the 18th.
We can't speak for Sid, I don't know about Sid's, because if I'm here, not here, and Mr. Case is not here, we wouldn't have a quorum if Sid's not here.
Okay, but you can't be here on the 18th?
No, I'll be in New York.
Okay. So
The
they-
11th is out.
So stay the 18th.
Okay.
18th. Okay. Next item on the agenda is consideration of matters related to amenity O&M budget and O&M assessments.
I thought we were going to cover that in November.
We deferred the item from the public hearing, right? Until November.
The public hearing was
So
continued.
we said
to
at each
November.
meeting that there was something the board needed to discuss, we would discuss it, so.
We still have, we have